Similar to my Dragon Ball The Others and One Piece Virus AU videos, Jujutsu Kaisen Zombie Infection AU landed in my presence. So I did my research and what the freak is going on in Shibuya now? So during the Shibuya incident arc, this alternate scenario plays out. This alternate universe reimagines JJK as a horror outbreak, people suddenly turning violent or into zombies, and even the main character doesn't understand the source, blending curses and possession with traditional zombie horror. So here we are rewinding back in time during the Shibuya incident when Yuji Itadori and Choso were having their heated battle. The story begins with their fight being interrupted by loud screams. And Yuji, who's worried, gets warned by Sukuna that whatever threat is out there is non-human or non-curse. Keep in mind, Yuji Itadori is a vessel of the king of all curses named Sukuna, who just wants his body to cause death and no other reason, just for the fun of it. And moments after, Yuji can't believe what he sees, a zombie towering over him, and that's when the undead creature sends Yuji flying into a wall, leaving him on 1 HP. He sits there and hears a voice from inside of his head. It's Sukuna saying,
"You're more than special great curses, your imperfect ambitions. Let me remind you of your place. Strange thing, I stand above all of you. Dismantle."
This is about to turn into an agony fair, brat. I'm going to enjoy watching you suffer. Let the massacre begin. And as he takes over Yuji's body, he tells the zombie to die, useless one. But the ground starts shaking, and as the floor collapses, Sukuna jumps over it, dodging a zombie attack, saying, "I want to see your stupid face, Itadori, after seeing so many people dead and disfigured." And that's when the zombie out of nowhere gets a bite on Sukuna. This surprises Sukuna and he chops off his arm. I'm sure plenty of you are surprised as well because Sukuna during the Shibuya arc was basically untouchable. When Sukuna takes over Yuji's body after creating his binding vow within Chain, he goes on a rampage and crosses paths with Jogo, one of the disaster curses, and tells him, "If you land even a single hit on me, I'll fight you seriously," prompting Jogo to go all out, and Sukuna basically gave him a false sense of hope. Jogo did things like Maximum Meteor, and Sukuna just let him go wild, and Sukuna destroys him after melting down almost the whole city with not a scratch on him. So Sukuna regenerates his arm and notes about how long it took it to regenerate, as it usually doesn't take that long, and he realizes he won't be infected, but comes to the conclusion that he does need to take the fight serious from here on out. And in that moment, Yuji takes control of his body and realizes the zombie dead in front of him is his friend Ino, saying to himself, "Are they not human anymore?" Meanwhile, in another part of town, Nobara is hearing screaming too, and that's when she sees a zombie racing toward her for the inevitable bite until Nanami comes out of nowhere and saves her, then immediately tells her to leave Shibuya as there's something going on with the sorcerers that he can't explain. And before he can tell her to look for Megami, he hears something from downstairs and says, "Crap," and is seemingly stabbed or bitten from behind as Nobara yells Nanami's name. And he tells her again to run and don't look back, Nobara. And before we're shown the next scene, we see the skylines of Shibuya, and it's about 22 in military time, which means it's about 10 p.m. at night. And in the next scene, we're shown Nobara refusing to leave Nanami, saying, "What's happening? I won't leave you alone." And Nanami explains in detail, "Nobara, I don't know what's going on. Suddenly people and curses started attacking each other. Some sorcerers ended up dead, others killed each other. I think it's some kind of unknown virus or something. That's why I'm telling you for one last time, you need to get out of here." And then it cuts to the next scene where it says, "Meanwhile, the strongest sorcerer," where Gojo is saying, "What the hell?" And he looks over at seeing civilians and curses alike are fighting, mutated and disfigured. And he says, "I have to stop this. People are attacking each other. Even special grade curses are going wild. I'm sorry, but I can't save everyone. I have no choice but to use my domain expansion." Of course, if you're a fan of JJK, you know that the situation is very much out of control if Gojo considers using his domain expansion, a move that is kinda harmful for innocents. Imagine being a normal human getting so much information fed to your brain, you eventually die. That's what the ability of his domain expansion is. And as Gojo pops his domain expansion, he kind of monologues in his head saying, "I'll save whoever I can. Let's end this." Gojo knows this is no longer a clean rescue operation. This is a purge. Meanwhile, in the next scene, Nobara is hit. She's flung backwards through the air. She lands hard, bleeding, and unconscious, saying, "Shoot." And Nobara's fate is unclear. She could be dying or turning. And during all of this commotion, Nanami is pouring loads of blood out of his mouth, turning, saying, "My blood burns and I'm hungry." So we know 2 symptoms after getting bit. You start to feel hot as your blood starts to boil, and you begin to get very hungry. So Yuji eventually runs into Nanami and can't believe what has become of his teacher. And he says, "Nanami?" looking disgusted by what he's seeing. And that's when Sukuna says, "You idiot, be careful." And Yuji hesitates, then apologizes. And Sukuna urges Yuji to stop standing around and kill Nanami before he attacks. And Yuji tears up and says, "I'm sorry, Nanami, for being late. I'm sorry," bursting his head off with tears coming down his face. After, we're brought back to a scene with Gojo where he talks about how they're getting faster than him, and the zombies are trying to finish the fight as fast as possible, overwhelming Gojo, who eventually kills them and decides to go find the rest of his students. Now, Gojo is known as the strongest sorcerer, and if he's struggling with all of the abilities he has, like Infinity, against these zombies, then there's no telling how all the other sorcerers are dealing with this type of threat. In the next scene, we're shown Kenjaku, who's kind of the one behind or orchestrated the whole Shibuya incident. And right now, his plan is going horribly wrong. The curses are fighting each other. He's asking where Dagon is, who is a powerful cursed spirit who was defeated by Toji and is nowhere to be found now. Kenjaku is confused about what's going on. So he starts to worry that his plan is failing due to the biggest threat in Shibuya right now to it all, which is Megami, because of his 10 Shadows technique and ability to summon Mahoraga. So in retaliation, he sends Jugo and Mahito out to retrieve the fingers from Yuji. For those who don't remember or may not have watched, the reason why he wants these fingers savored is because the fingers are powerful cursed objects that are crucial in Sukuna's revival and for increasing his power. Kenjaku wants Sukuna's full reincarnation, which will align with his plan. And that's when Choso asks if he can help as well, and Kenjaku says they got it. But little did he know that Jogo was getting his body disassembled as they speak by a horde of zombies and was begging Mahito to pop his domain, and luckily he did, saving them both, because Mahito has the ability to manipulate the souls of the people he touches, and in his domain he can do that, but even better, without even touching you. And as it begins to rain, they walk off as they continue their mission. Meanwhile, Kizukabe and Inumaki are in the darkness of Shibuya, and a cursed spirit, huge in size, is staring them down in the middle of the street. Next, we're shown panels of Mahoraga, and it's revealed in a flashback that during Toji and Megami's fight, Megami was unfortunately bitten, and sadly it was by Ino before his demise by Sukuna. And while they fight, Mahoraga is summoned to fight Toji. Looking closely, you can tell that Megami is completely about to be taken over by the virus, and his eyes are super red. But that's when it says something is wrong on the screen. And Megami starts fighting Mahoraga, saying in his mind, "I have no chance." Toji tries jumping into the fight, but then gets swatted away. And in his last breath, he says, "I have no chance." And Mahoraga bites down on his head, taking it clean off. Now that Toji's gone, Megami gets relieved and thanks Mahoraga. And that's when something approaches Mahoraga from behind. Something said to be too strong for someone even like Mahoraga. And the stare down begins as it's revealed to be Gojo, who's saddened but also angry. All Gojo basically wants to do in this moment is get revenge, and starts off by sending Mahoraga flying through buildings, who eventually comes back in Gojo's face, causing not only more infected to appear, but also Gojo to be surprised, as he thought he was completely finished after that one attack. And out of nowhere, weird things start happening. A mother shows up saying, "Gojo, can you please save my baby?" Being followed by a zombie bull, Gojo looks in disbelief, saying, "What the freak?" Then Gojo immediately takes the baby from her, revealing one other thing. Mahoraga has adapted to the virus, Keep in mind, Mahoraga has this signature ability that allows him to adapt to any and all phenomena, allowing him to adapt to offensive and defensive techniques. So just know whenever his 8-handled wheel spins, just know he's about to become immune to an ability or bypass that ability. Next, the bull and Mahoraga begin to charge towards each other, with Gojo, the baby, and the mom in the middle, with unfortunately the mom getting squished to death and Gojo getting out of there, as Gojo looks in despair saying, "I can't save them all. I'm sorry, little one." Gojo eventually hears footsteps walking up from behind him, and unfortunately, it's Megumi, zombified. This scene is pretty sad for Gojo because that's Gojo's student, and not only that, he just got done seeing a baby's mother get crushed, and he just killed a lot of innocent people that he couldn't save on accident. And before even getting time to recollect himself, Gojo sees Yuta, who pulls up and says, "I'm sorry, Megumi, I have to end your suffering." But Megumi teleported away before he could even do so, and that's when Gojo gets up and says, "Yuta, take the baby." He also says, "I gotta deal with Mahoraga," and asks Yuta how strong Rika is. But Yuta cuts him off and says, "Is this your baby?" And Gojo, who gets embarrassed, says, "I just saved him, no." And then immediately after this, Gojo follows up with a domain expansion on Mahoraga, basically saying, "I'm gonna finish this here and now," and combines the red and the blue to make hollow purple. Meanwhile, outside of Gojo's domain in Shibuya, we see Nue, who's one of Megumi's cursed summons, is also zombified and looking horrifically huge and ugly. Which makes me think whoever caused this infection is definitely making them stronger than ever before. Sadly, Mahoraga eventually hits Gojo and he is left bloodied up saying crap. And Ui, who sneaks up on Gojo, off guards him, infecting him. At this point, Gojo would try to use the maximum amount of RCT to his brain, but by the time he tries this, it's already too late, and the zombie infection is already in his brain. And as he begins to have a fatal stroke, he starts to think back about on his students. As his brain rots, his students are scowling all over Shibuya, looking for their teacher, and Yuji is told by Sukuna that Gojo is infected. And that's when Gojo tells Yuji, "Don't worry about me. Save the people that are there, be careful because it's dangerous," and tells Itadori to get out of there as he gets attacked by Ui. By this time, it's revealed that Mahoraga has already adapted to Infinity and greets Yuji for the first time ever, knocking him through the air. Choso starts to realize that something is wrong and then realizes that he has a brother, similar to how the scene went in the anime. Then we're shown the scene of Gojo where he slams Ui to the ground, and using his 6 eyes, he notices that Mei is trapped under the rubble. Yuji, unfortunately, is about to be taken out by Mahoraga, and that's when Jugo hops in on the scene, along with Choso, who throws an attack at Mahoraga to save Yuji, and says to himself, "Yuji's my brother? Was it always this way?" And basically says Geto's gonna pay for what he's done. "I gotta protect my brother from Geto and Mahito, but first, I gotta get out of here. He's smiling at me like he knows he's gonna win." In the next scene, we see Yuta fighting and struggling against one of Megumi's zombie summons, which makes him call on Rika, who's also known as the Queen of Curses, who saved Yuta from his fall, but doesn't actually fight because the summon actually took out itself because it couldn't withstand the damage from its own attack. And when Yuta's done looking at the sky, he looks down and sees Gojo, who's becoming infected, holding Mei. And he basically tells Yuta, "I think you already know what's happening to me, and don't worry, I'm gonna take out myself by using 300% hollow purple with no restraints. I want you to take Mei to a safe place and do not follow me, as you'll just be putting yourself in danger." Then Yuta breaks down yelling at Gojo saying, "Professor, I'm not stupid enough to believe that you're not concerned one bit about your situation. You really think you can beat all those infected in the current state you're in? You're a human too, and not everything's okay. You don't always have to lie to yourself. You're very important and I care about you. I don't care if you're the strongest. You have feelings just like a regular human." And Gojo responds by saying, "I am the strongest, and my job is to protect you and everyone else. It's too late to worry about me. Everyone's always seen me as a weapon, never cared about my feelings. The only one who's ever cared about me is dead now. Goodbye, Yuta. I'm dead to you now." And as Gojo runs away to fulfill his duty, in his head he apologizes to everyone he's failed and all of his students. Next, we see a scene where Choso is fighting Mahoraga and he's using his blood as a defense mechanism, but Mahoraga eventually bypasses that, hitting him far away. At this point, both of his arms are gone, which he said he would have lost his whole life if he didn't have that shield up. And as Mahoraga goes for the final blow on Choso, Choso begs for Itadori to wake up and jump in, but then out of nowhere, Gojo shows up. And as Gojo fights back, he starts to note about how difficult it is to control his body. On top of that, Infinity is getting weaker and is not having the same power as before. His strength is getting so weak that he even thinks that Mahoraga is adapting. And then his consciousness starts talking to him saying, "Wake up, Satoru. There's so much work to be done. They all trust you. You gotta save them all. You can still rise, Satoru. Your time has not come. Do it for the fallen, your students. For me, Satoru Gojo. Get up." These words play in Gojo's mind as his last and final thoughts as he lays on the ground. His eyes opened up with a glow. And in his final moments, he's hit with a huge adrenaline, completely being overflown with cursed energy. And Gojo begins to use Hollow Purple, going from 0 to 300%, proclaiming himself as the strongest once again. Then we're shown different point of views and reactions to his secret technique at 300%. Many left in disbelief. Gojo eventually wakes up in a place of darkness, where it's basically said that Gojo's perspective of the world is now different and more corrupted. The strongest has been reincarnated and nobody's there to stop him. Judgment Day has begun. Then we see the unconscious bodies of Choso and Yuji, who's being looked at by Jogo, who's basically praying that they wake up because they're the only key to stopping Gojo. And then out of nowhere, Jogo is slammed with blue from Gojo. Jogo, who's left at 1 HP, gets stared down by Gojo into his blank, soulless eyes. Luckily, before Jogo was hit by that fatal attack, he dodged it, and it's revealed that during a flashback that something weird happened when Gojo did the 300% Hollow Purple. Basically, to put it in simple terms, Gojo, by sacrificing the inverse inversal, tried using a technique that would cost his life, but when he activated the technique, it did something else. It had a complete twist. The virus noticed that Gojo was a very special host, and it noticed to keep control of Gojo's body, it had to keep some fragments of his consciousness. Gojo had thought he made a deal that permanently disabled his reverse curse technique, but the contract was secretly changed due to the manipulation of the virus in his brain, so Gojo was basically tricked and lost all of his powers completely, but he can still use them just to survive the virus, not to help others. So as Gojo and Jugo continue their fight, Jugo is completely horrified, and that's when Sukuna eventually wakes up. And that's when Sukuna would accidentally run into the fingers that make him more powerful and devour them, leaving him at 15 fingers, and that's when he noticed Gojo and Jugo fighting. Unluckily, Jugo eventually met his demise. He was split into 2 pieces like a freaking Oreo cookie. And as Jugo sits there begging for his life, he gets kicked into oblivion, and as he stands there causing up blood, he starts to apologize to his comrades. But infected Gojo doesn't care. He dismembers his body, breaking and ripping off his arms like chicken legs and ripping out his eyeball. And as Gojo turns around, him and Sukuna finally meet. And Sukuna says to him, "I gotta get rid of you right now. This has gotten out of hand. What's next? A curse destroying Japan? Doesn't matter anyways. Dismantle." Gojo gets hit by Dismantle, but Gojo fights back, picking Sukuna's limbs apart. And getting a closer look at Gojo's face during this fight, it doesn't look really good for him. If you've ever seen anybody's face after going through serious burning injuries, this looks very similar. Now I can see why their blood feels like it's boiling. It actually is burning. Sukuna yells out "pathetic" and slams Gojo, saying "die." But sadly, this doesn't do much to Gojo. He fights back and destroys Sukuna, so hard that it wakes up Yuji at the same time Yuta does, and Yuta, witnessing his master, just breaks down in tears. But Yuta doesn't give up on Gojo and eventually gets grabbed by the mouth by him. And that's when Sukuna saves Yuta, calling out Gojo's name, saying, "This is now the real fight." And Sukuna starts to notice Gojo's not trying, and that's when Yuta hops in and starts to fight Gojo, but starts to hold back and then gets thrown into Sukuna. And that's when Sukuna says, "If you keep doing that, you're going to die." You're being naive. Meanwhile, Gojo pulls up behind both of them and black flashes both of them from behind. And then we're told that Gojo is getting out of hand. After hitting both of those black flashes, his reverse curse technique is replenishing very fast. Sukuna is not going to be awake for any time longer, and the others are pulling up, but they just don't know when or how long it's going to take for them to. In the next scene, we see Kenjaku, who's kinda going crazy and is talking to himself about how Gojo's not gonna be a problem for any time longer. All I have to do is find Mahito and absorb him, and my mission's complete. And that's when the narrator reveals that this virus or infection is not only affecting Shibuya or just Japan, it's affecting the whole world. The oceans, the waters, the world leaders of the nations across the globes don't even know how to deal with this. And all they're saying is that there's red liquid slowly spreading across the sea, contaminating everything. Back to the fight, Sukuna is basically done, out of it, beaten, and Gojo is revealed to be at full potential because of the virus. And in the meantime, Gojo's dragging Sukuna to the crater hole where Yuta is and throws Sukuna at Yuta, and before he can do his blue attack, Yuta just gets a huge adrenaline and matches Gojo's speed and hits him with the reverse ritual in hopes to free his teacher. Keep in mind that this technique is not in the show and it's solely made for this AU only. But while that is happening, Yuji wakes up in his body and Sukuna goes to sleep. And before Gojo could hit Yuji with another attack, we're shown what's going on in Yuji's body, and basically Yuji's begging for Sukuna to save Gojo. And Sukuna just laughs at him saying, "You really think I'm gonna save him? I really enjoy the death of Gojo and all of you, but what really bothers me is teaming up with these low bottom of the barrel sorcerers. If only I had my original body, I would have gotten rid of all of you weak fucking sorcerers." And that's when Irami pulls up, giving him some fingers to devour, and all he needs is 3 more now and he'll be his strongest. And Sukuna asks her where Yuta is by asking her, "Where's the other sorcerer?" And Irame tells him that he's unconscious, his name, and also says that Kenjaku told him a lot about him, saying that his technique can copy techniques, and that his Shikigami, Rika, is his strongest weapon. Then Sukuna tells Urame to get out of here as Gojo is finally back and they can continue their battle. Instantly, Sukuna hits Gojo with a black flash, sending him flying. And as Gojo uses his blue technique, they both fly towards each other and then pop domain at the same time, possibly clashing. And then we're cut to Sukuna being confused. Then we start to see that Gojo actually overpowered Sukuna. Then Gojo completely destroys Sukuna's domain with red, but his face comes off. Sukuna tries taking advantage of this, but ends up getting grabbed by the neck by Gojo. And there, Sukuna sits in Gojo's domain, unable to do anything, just Gojo's prey. And Gojo bites a piece out of him. "I'll get out of here somehow. I'll make you suffer, Gojo." We're then shown Mahito's point of view, and it turns out he tried curing the infected, but it completely backfired, and all he seen was destruction and darkness for some reason. So that's when he became very hopeless and desperate, screaming out for all of his friends and everything for help, and one of these people, of course, were Kenjaku, and when Kenjaku showed up, he betrayed him and absorbed him like he said he was going to. And then he said his villainous plan once again and says it's almost complete. Now all that is in the way is Gojo. Next, it's shown that 1 hour after Gojo was infected, Sukuna and Gojo were still fighting, and while they were in their domain clash, someone voided it out and nullified it by love, and that was Yuta. Yuta also sorrowfully apologizes to his fallen mentor and vows to fix everything, charging at Sukuna, temporarily stunning him with the black flash. But unfortunately for Yuta, that doesn't do anything to Sukuna and he tanks it. Sukuna was completely unfazed and Yuta is completely confused. Now this is when something interesting happens, as Yuta gets caught by Gojo's cursed energy technique, Blue, and then starts to realize Gojo is still using his abilities and discovers that despite everything, Gojo's body is still functioning, hinting that Gojo's lingering influence or a deeper plan. While Yuta's fighting Gojo, Sukuna yells at him saying, "You damn brat, are you stupid? Never try the same technique twice though, honestly." But Yuta's just saying to himself, "Keep it together. If I don't know what will happen. I have to help. It's Gojo sensei." And that's when the narrator basically talks about how Yuta is gonna fall out this battle and he's reaching his limit. But Gojo's in there protecting his students, which is why that's not happening. Gojo is stopping his infinity and holding it back, along with his domain barrier to avoid surpassing his student. And Gojo eventually does this until essentially he can't no more, and he's completely tied up with the strongest one taking over. Now luckily Rika fighting Gojo for so long helped Yuta get his power over the 120%, and Gojo punches Yuta, and that's when the narration starts and the timer starts to go down. Gojo is revealed to not be going down anytime soon, and the king of all curses is even going to be defeated. Even kings are capable of falling. Gojo uses blue, and Rika flies towards it, allowing Yuta to go in for an attack on Gojo, but he just sends him flying too. And as the timer keeps going down in its last seconds, both Sukuna and Yuta stare. Both of them know that time is almost up, and in a last resort decision, they decide to go for his infinity. And the time hits 0 as they both reach their hands out desperately. All is heard is domain expansion. From the outside of the domain, where the domain is weaker, we see Kenjaku, who says, "Wonderful. I never thought of using such basic logic again." Conveniently, with no time left, it's revealed that Kenjaku actually broke Gojo's domain, leaving them to fall out of the sky. And Kenjaku talks to Sukuna saying, "I doubt you can see me right now." Now if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. I don't know if this video is going to completely do good or not, and I'll do another part if you guys really want it or not, but turn on those post notifications. Check out the description. Love you guys. Stay blessed. Peace.